It was an unusually warm afternoon in the small suburban town of Fairlawn, Ohio. Birds chirped in the trees, sunlight danced on the rooftops, and the neighborhood children laughed while riding their bikes up and down the quiet cul-de-sac. Inside one cozy white house at the end of the street, the Miller family was enjoying the calm weekend. Lauren Miller was in the kitchen, preparing lunch while humming softly to herself, and her husband Tom sat on the couch, scrolling through emails. On his phone outside, in the fenced backyard, their 2-year-old German Shepherd named Rex patrolled the perimeter like he always did. Rex wasn't just a pet, he was family. From the day they brought him home as a puppy, he had formed an unshakable bond with the Millers. He was especially attached to their youngest daughter, baby Emma, who had just started walking confidently a few weeks earlier. Everywhere Emma went, Rex was never far behind, his watchful eyes guarding her with unspoken loyalty. That afternoon, Lauren had let Emma crawl around in the backyard under Rex's supervision. It was something they often did. Rex was more protective than any babysitter, always nudging Emma away from danger and barking softly if she neared the garden or the edge of the patio. But today, something was different. Something no one could have predicted. Emma sat near her favorite patch of grass, playing with her small stuffed giraffe and giggling to herself. A few feet away, Rex stood still, his ears perked, eyes narrowing. Suddenly, without warning, his legs buckled. The strong, proud dog collapsed onto the ground, his body trembling for a few seconds before lying eerily still. There was no bark, no cry, just the sound of wind rustling the leaves. Emma turned her head. At first, she didn't understand. Rex had laid down plenty of times before. But there was something strange about how he looked now, something even a toddler could sense. His mouth hung open slightly, his eyes glassy. He wasn't moving. She stared for a few seconds, then slowly crawled toward him, dragging her favorite pink blanket behind her. Her innocent mind didn't understand what was happening, but her heart, small and pure, recognized something was wrong. Emma reached Rex's side and sat down beside him. She gently touched his paw, then his nose. When he didn't respond, she laid her tiny head on his chest, listening. His heart was still beating, but faintly. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. Instead, she took her soft blanket and carefully draped it over his back, covering his trembling body as best she could. She patted his head slowly, just like her mom did to comfort her during bedtime. She hummed a soft tune, tuneless and childlike, but calming. Her hand remained on his side, as if she somehow knew he needed to feel warmth, closeness, life. Inside the house, Lauren glanced out the kitchen window, expecting to see the usual scene: Rex pacing and Emma wobbling along behind him. But what she saw made her heart stop. Her baby was sitting next to a motionless Rex, draped in her pink blanket. The plate she held slipped from her hands and shattered in the sink. "Tom!" she screamed. "Something's wrong with Rex." Tom bolted upright and ran after her as she flew out the back door. Lauren reached them first. She dropped to her knees and scooped Emma into her arms, panic flooding her voice as she cried, "Rex?" Rex didn't respond. His breathing was shallow, labored, and his eyes were barely open. Tom, now crouching beside them, didn't hesitate. He lifted the heavy dog into his arms as best he could, staggering under Rex's weight. "Call the vet," he shouted over his shoulder. "I'll get him in the car." Lauren nodded frantically, holding Emma close as she fumbled for her phone. Her hands shook as she dialed the emergency animal hospital 2 towns over. She could barely get the words out between sobs. 10 minutes later, they arrived at the veterinary emergency center. Rex was rushed into a treatment room, while the Millers waited outside, hearts pounding. Emma sat in Lauren's lap, her head against her mother's chest. She still didn't cry. She seemed calm, almost as if she believed Rex would be okay because she had done her part. The vet, Dr. Singh, came out moments later, her face serious but calm. "He's stable for now," she began. "Your dog had a sudden cardiac episode. It was severe, and honestly, in many cases like this, they don't survive." Lauren's hand flew to her mouth, tears instantly pouring down her face. Tom stood frozen, unable to speak. "But," the vet continued, glancing down at Emma, "your daughter may have saved him." They stared at her, stunned. "She was with him when it happened, yes?" Dr. Singh asked. Lauren nodded. "She must have kept him warm. Her presence, her touch, it helped regulate his body temperature and heartbeat. That might have kept him from going into full shock. You got him here just in time." Lauren looked down at Emma, who blinked up at her with sleepy eyes. She covered him with her blanket. Lauren whispered. Dr. Singh smiled faintly. "Then that blanket may have been the most important tool we had today." Tom finally found his voice. "So, he's going to live? If we manage his condition and watch him closely, yes," the vet said. "We'll know more after the full test results." They spent the next 2 hours waiting while Rex was treated and stabilized. During that time, Emma stayed awake, quiet and alert, eyes darting toward the door every time someone walked by. It was as if she was waiting to see her best friend again. No one in the waiting room could take their eyes off her. The baby, who had kept calm while everyone else had panicked. When Dr. Singh returned with good news, Rex was breathing better, responding to treatment, and would likely survive, the entire waiting room erupted in smiles and applause. Even strangers felt touched by the story. The Millers wept with relief. They were allowed to visit Rex briefly, and when Emma reached out and touched his fur, his tail wagged weakly. In that moment, the world seemed to pause. None of them could have known that what had just happened. Emma's quiet gesture, the collapse, the recovery was only the beginning. A story of pure love had started, and soon it would reach far beyond the walls of that little vet clinic. The soft hum of machines filled the quiet veterinary recovery room. Tubes ran from Rex's nose to an oxygen tank, and his chest slowly rose and fell beneath the blanket placed over him by the attending vet. But that wasn't the blanket that mattered most. Emma's small pink one was folded neatly on the chair beside the bed, still holding the warmth of a tiny girl who had used it to comfort her best friend. Dr. Singh had only seen a few cases like this in her 15-year career. A non-verbal child made such a profound impact during an emergency. As she looked through Rex's charts, she glanced toward the waiting room and smiled at the thought of that baby, gently patting her dog's head, as if she instinctively knew what to do. Back in the waiting room, Emma sat on Lauren's lap, sucking her thumb, clearly exhausted. Her eyes were wide but peaceful, and she clutched the corner of her pink blanket tightly in her hand. Tom paced nearby, unable to sit still. The emotional whiplash of almost losing Rex was still fresh in his mind. "I keep thinking, if she hadn't been there," Tom muttered, running his fingers through his hair. Lauren nodded. "We would have found him too late." "She didn't even cry," Tom added, looking down at his daughter in awe. "How does a baby stay that calm?" Lauren kissed the top of Emma's head. "She's grown up with Rex. I think in her mind, helping him was just natural." Dr. Singh soon returned, smiling softly. "Would you like to come see him? He's stable enough for a short visit." Lauren and Tom stood instantly. Emma, as if she understood, reached her arms up to be carried. When they entered the room, the sight made Lauren choke back tears. Rex was awake. Barely, but when he saw Emma, his tail thumped weakly against the table. The baby reached out immediately and placed her hand on his fur, just as she had done in the yard. Rex let out a soft groan of recognition. His eyes locked onto Emma's, and in that silent exchange, something deep and powerful passed between them. "She saved you, buddy," Tom whispered, placing a hand on Rex's head. Emma giggled faintly and pointed to Rex's paw, then placed her own hand on it as if making sure it stayed there. Dr. Singh watched quietly from the doorway. "We don't usually allow infants in these rooms," she said gently. "But I think in this case, she belongs here." That night, the family returned home without Rex, who needed to remain in the hospital for monitoring. Emma fussed when they left the clinic, her first real sign of distress. She kept pointing toward the doors, trying to wiggle out of Lauren's arms, whispering, "Rex, Rex." At home, she refused to sleep in her crib. After several failed attempts, Lauren placed her in Rex's dog bed with the pink blanket. Within minutes, Emma curled up and dozed off, one hand gripping the edge of the soft bed as if waiting for Rex to return. The next morning, a nurse at the clinic posted a short video clip on a local Facebook group. In it, Emma could be seen covering Rex with her blanket and gently laying beside him. The nurse hadn't intended for the clip to go public, but the emotions it evoked were overwhelming. Comments flooded in thousands in just hours. "Faith in humanity restored," one comment read. "I'm in tears watching this. The bond between kids and dogs is real." Another wrote. By the next day, the video had been shared over 1 million times. Local media outlets picked it up, dubbing Emma the littlest lifesaver. A news station reached out to the Millers requesting an interview. At first, they hesitated, but Dr. Singh encouraged them. "People need stories like this," she said. "Stories that remind us how much kindness still exists." So, a day later, the Millers found themselves sitting in front of cameras in their living room. Emma sat between her parents, clutching her blanket. When the reporter asked what happened, Lauren retold the story, her voice trembling. She described Emma's reaction, her touch, and the vet's words. The reporter then turned to Emma. "And how did you help Rex, sweetheart?" Emma stared at the microphone, blinked, and simply said, "Blanky." Everyone in the room melted. The segment aired that night, and before long, national morning shows were calling. Talk show hosts tweeted about Emma. Animal rescue organizations reposted the video and praised the family. Celebrities like Ellen DeGeneres, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and even a famous vet from TV commented online. The hashtag Baby Emma and Rex began trending across platforms. But the Millers didn't care about the attention. All they wanted was for Rex to come home. 2 days later, that wish came true when Tom pulled into the driveway with Rex in the back. Seat still weak, but sitting upright, Lauren and Emma were already waiting outside. The moment Rex stepped out, Emma squealed in joy and toddled forward with her blanket trailing behind her. Rex, despite the fatigue in his limbs, stood taller and leaned his head gently into Emma's tiny body. It was a reunion that felt larger than life. A moment of healing. A moment of love. As the sun dipped low behind the rooftops, casting golden rays across the yard, the image of a baby girl wrapping her arms around her dog while clutching a warm pink blanket told a story more powerful than any headline could capture. It wasn't just a dog being saved. It was the silent power of love in its purest, most innocent form that saved him. And the world, watching from afar, felt it too. The days following Rex's return home felt surreal for the Miller family. Their loyal German shepherd was no longer the energetic guardian he once was. He moved slowly, slept often, and leaned heavily on Tom or Lauren whenever he walked. But none of that mattered. What mattered was that he was alive, and that a toddler's pure love had kept his heart beating just long enough. Inside the house, Rex mostly lay on a soft mat in the living room. Emma, never far from him, had taken it upon herself to be his full-time nurse. Every morning, she dragged her pink blanket over to his side, sat down next to him, and rested her hand on his fur. She would sing to him in gibberish, show him her toys, and sometimes even offer him her sippy cup, holding it up to his nose as if willing him to drink. Lauren watched from the kitchen doorway each day, constantly amazed by her daughter's quiet devotion. It wasn't just sweet, it was spiritual. A connection far deeper than most adults could understand. "She hasn't done this with anything else," Lauren said to Tom one evening. "Not her stuffed animals. Not her dolls, just him." Tom, who was scrolling through his phone, looked up. "It's wild, and the internet is still talking about it. Look, this one post alone has 12 million views." He turned the screen around to show her. A news article titled, "Baby's Blanket Saves Dog's Life, a Story of Silent Heroism," had gone viral. People from all over the country had begun messaging the Millers, some thanking them, others asking for updates on Rex's health, and many simply saying the story gave them hope. Lauren sighed. "It's a beautiful thing, but I just don't want people to forget that this was real. This wasn't a stunt or a story to sell. This was our baby, our dog. It could have ended so differently." Tom nodded. "But maybe it didn't, so the world could be reminded that love still matters. Even the tiniest kind." As the national attention grew, so did the inquiries. Producers from major talk shows began requesting appearances. A children's book author emailed them with the idea of turning Emma and Rex's story into a picture book. Even a documentary filmmaker from Los Angeles expressed interest. At first, the Millers were overwhelmed. They didn't want to exploit what had happened. But when a producer from a national morning show called and said, "We just want to share your story, to bring some kindness into the world," they agreed to one interview on their terms. A few days later, a film crew arrived at their home. They set up lights and cameras while Rex lay peacefully in his bed and Emma played nearby, completely unaware of the attention around her. During the interview, Lauren recalled the moment she looked out the window and saw her daughter lying beside Rex. "I thought, oh no, please no," she said, holding back tears. "But then I saw the blanket and the way she was touching him. And I knew she wasn't afraid. She was comforting him. She knew he needed her." Tom added, "I honestly believe if we'd found him even 5 minutes later, he wouldn't have made it. It was like she gave him just enough love to keep him here." The interviewer then asked if Emma remembered what happened. The toddler looked at the woman, then crawled over to Rex and kissed the top of his head. "Blanky," she said softly. The moment aired the next morning on national television, and instantly went viral again. Comments flooded social media with sentiments like, "I cried watching this," and "This child understands love more than most adults." But the most surprising moment came when the Millers received a call from a local animal hospital director. She explained that their story had inspired dozens of people to bring in pets for checkups. Others had donated to cover emergency care for families who couldn't afford it. "We're seeing a ripple effect of compassion," the director said, "all from your daughter and her dog." Lauren and Tom were stunned. They had simply lived through a traumatic moment and done what any loving family would do. But the world had seen something more, a story of purity, devotion, and survival. The following week, Rex's condition improved slightly. He began to wag his tail more, respond to Emma's voice faster, and even walk short distances to greet Tom at the door when he returned from work. Emma, in her own way, began celebrating these moments. Each time Rex stood or barked softly, she clapped and giggled, cheering like he just won a race. The whole family followed her lead, learning that recovery wasn't measured only by test results, but by moments of joy. Then came another surprise. A package arrived from a nonprofit called Hearts United for Animals. Inside was a certificate naming Rex and Emma honorary ambassadors of animal compassion, along with a letter inviting them to speak at a charity event in New York City. "We'd like to honor the bond between this little girl and her dog." The letter read, "Their story is a reminder of how powerful kindness can be, especially when it comes from the smallest among us." Lauren read the letter aloud while Tom held back tears. "I guess we've got two little heroes in the house," he whispered. That night, as Rex rested his head on his paws, and Emma curled up beside him with her pink blanket tucked under her chin, the Millers sat in quiet gratitude. So much had changed in just a few days. They had gone from near tragedy to national spotlight. And through it all, Emma had remained the same, just a little girl who loved her dog Dot. As Lauren turned off the living room light and looked back at the two of them snuggled together, she smiled. "They saved each other," she said softly, "in the most beautiful way." By the end of the week, the story of baby Emma and her dog Rex had touched nearly every corner of the country. Television segments played their reunion on repeat. Online articles recounted the moment Emma laid her blanket over Rex, and news outlets hailed it as one of the most heartwarming real-life stories of the year. But what surprised the Miller family most was not the media frenzy. It was how personally people responded. Every day, letters and messages poured in. Strangers wrote from every state, thanking Emma for showing the world what love looks like in its purest form. One woman from Texas said her daughter, who had never shown interest in animals, now wanted to volunteer at their local shelter. A veteran from Michigan, struggling with PTSD, said the video gave him peace he hadn't felt in years. A father from New York wrote that after watching Emma and Rex, he finally adopted a rescue dog he'd been hesitating to bring home. "I never thought one tiny act could change so many lives," Tom said one night as he scrolled through their inbox. Lauren nodded. She didn't say a word, just gave love. Meanwhile, Rex was slowly improving. He was still on medication, but his steps were stronger, and he even managed to trot a little in the yard for the first time since his collapse. Emma cheered wildly when she saw him run again, clapping her hands and shouting, "Rex, go!" as she followed him in wobbling steps. The video of that moment, Emma toddling after Rex, in the backyard with her pink blanket wrapped around her like a cape, was posted by Tom on social media. It received over 5 million views in 2 days. People from around the world left comments like, "I can't stop crying. This is the content the world needs. There's still good out there. This little girl proved it." Purest friendship ever captured on video. Major media platforms began requesting exclusive interviews, but the Millers turned most of them down. They didn't want their story to be commercialized or twisted into a spectacle. They weren't seeking fame. They simply wanted to honor what had happened and protect the bond between their daughter and their dog. However, one invitation stood out. A well-known animal welfare foundation in California contacted them with a different kind of request. They were organizing a national fundraising campaign for emergency veterinary care, and they wanted Rex and Emma to be the honorary faces of it. "We believe your story can save more animals," the director wrote. "There are countless families who can't afford emergency treatments for their pets. But if people knew how powerful compassion could be, like the compassion your daughter showed, they might be moved to act." After much thought, Lauren and Tom agreed. They realized this was bigger than them. If Emma and Rex's moment could bring about real change, they had to let it happen. The campaign launched with a short documentary-style video. It included clips of Emma patting Rex's head, photos of their first reunion at the clinic, and shots of the Miller family talking about the experience. It ended with a simple but powerful message. Love doesn't need words. Sometimes, all it takes is a blanket and a friend. The response was overwhelming. Donations flooded in from across the globe. In just 1 week, over $500,000 was raised to support emergency animal clinics and provide free treatment to pets in low-income households. Families who had once faced the terrible choice between saving their pets and paying their rent were now being offered help, all because of one small act of love. At the same time, schools across the country started discussing Emma and Rex in classrooms. Teachers used the story to talk about empathy, kindness, and the importance of caring for animals. In a world often filled with harsh headlines, this story was different. It reminded people of innocence, of trust, and of how deeply connected we all are, whether we speak or not. Meanwhile, back in Fairlawn, the Millers tried to maintain normalcy. They went on walks, read bedtime stories, and gave Rex his medications each day without fail. Emma continued her routine. Every morning, she would wake up, grab her blanket, and go find Rex. If he was still lying down, she'd sit beside him. If he was walking, she'd follow him wherever he went. But one morning, something different happened. Emma walked into the living room, dragging her blanket behind her like always. Rex was sitting by the window, watching birds. When he saw her, he stood and gently placed his paw on her leg. She paused. Then she dropped the blanket, hugged him tightly, and whispered, "Love you, Rex." It was the first time she had said a full sentence. Lauren, watching from the kitchen, gasped. She wiped a tear from her cheek and called out to Tom. "She just spoke," she whispered. She spoke to him. That simple moment held more weight than any headline or donation figure. It was a private miracle, one that no camera could capture. Emma's first sentence wasn't to her parents. It wasn't about food or toys. It was to the dog who nearly died in her arms. And it wasn't just any words. It was love. From that day on, the bond between them grew even stronger. Emma began talking more, slowly learning to express herself. And through it all, Rex remained by her side, calm, loyal, and quietly healing. For the world, the story of Emma and Rex was one of inspiration and tenderness. But for the Millers, it was something more. It was the reminder that sometimes the smallest souls carry the greatest light. And in a moment of crisis, it was that light that kept a heart beating and reminded millions what really matters. By the time Emma spoke her first full sentence, "Love you, Rex," it had already become clear to everyone around her that she and her dog shared something rare. But after that day, something changed in the way the world saw the story too. This wasn't just about a baby and her dog anymore. It was about healing, emotional growth, and how silent love can transform not just a life, but many. The news of Emma's first words spread quickly after a small clip was shared by a family friend on social media. In the video, Emma placed her little arms around Rex's neck, pressed her cheek against his fur, and whispered those three unforgettable words. The response was explosive. The video was shared by parenting pages, therapy communities, animal rescue groups, and major influencers around the world. One user tweeted, "This child went from saving her dog's life to speaking her first words because of him. If that's not a miracle, what is?" Another posted, "This is love in its rawest form. No drama. Just a baby, her blanket, and a best friend who refused to let go." The hashtag Emma and Rex began trending globally. Media outlets that had previously covered their story updated their headlines. "She saved him. Now he's helping her find her voice." The human interest angle now included pediatric development specialists who began citing Emma in discussions about emotional breakthroughs in toddlers. But perhaps the most powerful impact was felt in living rooms across America. Thousands of families started reaching out. Parents of children with speech delays or emotional sensitivities shared how watching Emma interact with Rex inspired them to find new ways to connect with their kids. One mother from Oregon wrote, "After watching Emma and Rex, I stopped rushing my son to speak. Instead, I just started sitting with him, quietly, like Emma did. And yesterday, he called me Mama for the first time. The Millers were stunned. Their simple emotional moment was now helping other families heal. Invitations flooded in. National talk shows, news interviews, and even a children's network wanted to create a short, animated story based on Emma and Rex. The family carefully selected just a few to appear on, opting for platforms that respected the heart of the story. They declined anything that felt commercial, even turning down a pet food brand that offered a large check in exchange for a promotion. "We're not selling them," Lauren said firmly. "They're not a product. This is about something real." One of the most touching moments came during an interview on a popular morning show. Emma sat between her parents, while Rex lay calmly at their feet. The host leaned forward and asked gently, "Emma, what do you love most about Rex?" Emma blinked, looked down at her dog, and patted his head. Then she whispered into the microphone, "He didn't leave." The room went completely still. Even the host had to pause for a moment, tears forming in her eyes. "That's right, sweetheart," she said, voice breaking. "And you didn't leave him either." That clip would go on to become one of the most replayed television moments of the year. Meanwhile, the foundation partnership that had launched the Hearts United Emergency Pet Fund was continuing to grow. Donations had passed $1 million, enough to build 6 new mobile emergency veterinary units in underserved communities. And Emma and Rex's story was featured in every one. Tom and Lauren had no plans to turn their family into celebrities, but they couldn't deny how proud they were of what Emma and Rex were unintentionally creating. Love shone through something as simple as a child's touch had grown into a national movement, and with it came another milestone. One day, they received a formal invitation from the governor's office of Ohio. The letter was neatly typed and read, "We would like to honor Emma Miller and her dog, Rex, with the state's Medal of Compassion for their extraordinary bond and for inspiring a wave of kindness, healing, and advocacy for animal care across the country." The ceremony was planned for the state capitol, and the Millers were stunned to find that people from across the state showed up, families, vets, teachers, animal lovers, all holding signs and pictures of Emma and Rex. When they walked on stage, Emma clutching her pink blanket and Rex walking slowly beside her, the audience erupted into cheers and applause. The governor knelt to Emma's level and handed her a small silver medal inscribed with the words, "For love without words." Emma smiled, patted Rex's head, and whispered, "We did it, Rex." After the event, Lauren held Emma close and looked out at the crowd. "I never imagined that one moment in our backyard would bring us here." Tom nodded. "That wasn't just a moment. That was the beginning of something." As they left the stage, a child in the crowd ran up with a handmade card. It had crayon drawings of a baby, a dog, and a heart. "Emma," the little girl said shyly, "you made me want to love my dog more." Emma took the card and smiled. "Me, too." It was then that Lauren and Tom realized something even deeper. Emma's act of love wasn't just a miracle. It was a message. A gentle reminder to the world that love, especially the kind that expects nothing in return, is the most powerful force of all. And so, the story of a helpless German shepherd, a silent baby, and a soft pink blanket continued not just as a memory, but as a movement. Back home from the award ceremony, the Miller house settled back into quiet, but it was a new kind of quiet, filled with gratitude, wonder, and a strange sense of purpose. Though the fame still lingered online, inside the Miller family's walls, life remained beautifully simple. Rex now had a designated medical routine. Twice daily heart medication, a low-stress diet, and regular vet checkups had become part of the family's rhythm. While he no longer had the stamina of his younger days, his spirit returned stronger than ever. He followed Emma from room to room, always gentle, always watchful. And Emma? She had changed, too. Something had awakened in her after Rex's recovery. Her words came more often now, short sentences, loving phrases, and even silly baby jokes. Her eyes sparkled when she spoke to Rex, and though she still kept her blanket nearby, she no longer clutched it for comfort. She now used it to cover Rex during naps, or to sit on beside him while she read aloud from picture books. Doctors who had once doubted if Rex would survive were amazed by his progress. And soon, others in the medical field took notice, not just veterinarians, but pediatric researchers, child development specialists, and even neurologists. One day, the Millers received a visit from Dr. Martha Lindgren, a well-respected pediatric neuroscientist from a nearby university. She had seen the viral videos and read the full account of Emma and Rex's journey. "What happened between your daughter and your dog," she said, "is more than emotional, it's neurological. We believe Rex acted as a developmental trigger in Emma's brain." Tom blinked. "What do you mean? Like therapy?" "Even more profound," Dr. Lindgren explained. "In some children, deep emotional bonds, especially those that involve nonverbal communication, can stimulate cognitive functions we don't fully understand yet. We've seen cases where children bonded with therapy animals, but Emma initiated the care. That's different. That's rare." Lauren looked over at Emma, who was sitting on the rug, gently brushing Rex's fur with a baby comb. "She knew exactly what he needed," she said softly, even before she could speak. Dr. Lindgren asked the family for permission to include their experience in a long-term study on animal-assisted emotional development in early childhood. After thoughtful consideration, the Millers agreed. Their story was no longer just an inspiring moment, it was becoming a case study in medical journals and university research. At conferences, scientists began referencing the Emma-Rex effect to explain how even the youngest children are capable of empathy-driven healing. Meanwhile, more letters arrived. One was from a hospital in Boston that specialized in treating children with autism. They had introduced Emma and Rex's video in their therapy programs, and early results were encouraging. Children who were previously withdrawn were mimicking Emma's gestures, attempting to comfort therapy animals, and even using blankets to cover dolls during emotional play. "We've seen breakthroughs we didn't expect," the letter read. "Your daughter gave other children a roadmap, one made of touch, silence, and love." Tom read the letter aloud at dinner. "She doesn't even know she's changing lives," he said. Lauren smiled. "She doesn't need to. She's just being herself." One day, the family received an invitation from a university to attend a symposium on emotional intelligence in children. Emma and Rex were to be honored as a symbol of compassion-driven development. As part of the event, a short film was shown. A quiet, beautifully edited sequence of Emma laying her blanket over Rex, him recovering, and the two walking side by side again in the garden. Soft music played as narration described how a toddler's touch became the first heartbeat in a story of healing. When the lights came back on, the auditorium was completely still. Then, a standing ovation erupted. One professor approached Lauren afterward and said, "This wasn't just heartwarming, it was transformative. Your daughter showed us what so many forget, that healing is not always about medicine. Sometimes it begins with a hand on fur and a heart wide open." The Millers returned home humbled and emotional. That night, Lauren sat beside Emma and said, "Sweetheart, do you know you helped a lot of people?" Emma tilted her head, thoughtful. Then she whispered, "Rex helped me too." It was true. Before the collapse, Emma was quiet, cautious, observant. But now she was vibrant, social, and emotionally expressive. Her pediatrician noted remarkable developmental strides. She was ahead in her speech, milestones, and demonstrated rare levels of empathy and emotional reasoning. "Do you think Rex knows what he did?" Tom asked Lauren one evening. Lauren looked out the window where Rex was lying under the stars. Emma curled beside him under their shared blanket. "I think he knew all along," she said. "That's why he waited for her." Word of the Miller family's story continued to ripple out. A television special was produced, titled Emma and Rex, Love Without Words, highlighting their journey and the national response it had inspired. Animal shelters reported adoption spikes, and donations to emergency animal care programs were at an all-time high. But through it all, the Millers stayed grounded. Every morning, Emma still woke up and whispered, "Good morning, Rex," before she even said a word to her parents. And every night, she kissed his nose and said, "Night-night, friend," before curling up beside him with her blanket. For all the attention and accolades, the true reward remained simple. Rex had lived. Emma had found her voice, and the world had remembered. In a time filled with noise, that quiet, gentle love could move mountains. In the backyard, where this story began, spring flowers now bloomed. Rex stood on the grass, stronger than ever, watching Emma chase butterflies. His ears perked when she laughed, his tail wagging with each joyful squeal. He had been helpless once, but love brought him back. And now, he stood not just as a survivor but as a teacher of loyalty, of healing, of the kind of love that doesn't need words at all. The months following Rex's recovery and Emma's speech breakthrough were some of the happiest in the Miller family's life. Their story continued to spread, not as a passing viral trend, but as something enduring, a living example of how love, loyalty, and the gentlest of actions could change the world. Emma and Rex were more inseparable than ever. She no longer needed her blanket for comfort, but she still kept it close, especially during quiet afternoons when she would curl up beside Rex and nap peacefully in his fur. He had become her safe place, her shadow, and in many ways, her silent guide through a world she was just beginning to speak to. But love, as the Millers were about to learn again, does not come without trials. One crisp October morning, Tom noticed something unusual. Rex wasn't walking as well. His front paw trembled slightly, and he moved slower, dragging his back legs just enough to worry him. Lauren brushed it off at first. "He's tired," she said. "He did chase Emma in the yard yesterday for almost 20 minutes. But by the third day, Tom knew it wasn't just fatigue. Rex's energy was dwindling again, and his breathing, although not labored, seemed slower, like every breath was being pulled from somewhere deep. They brought him to Dr. Singh immediately. After a full round of scans and tests, she called them into the office. Her face was kind, but her voice was serious. "It's not a relapse of the heart," she said. "But I'm afraid Rex has developed early signs of degenerative myelopathy." Tom's heart sank. "What does that mean?" Dr. Singh explained gently. "It's a progressive spinal condition. It affects coordination and mobility. Eventually, the legs lose function. There's no cure. But there are ways we can help him stay comfortable and mobile for as long as possible." Lauren's eyes filled with tears. "He just got better. Why now?" "I don't know," the doctor admitted. "Sometimes it appears suddenly in aging dogs. But the good news is, he's still strong, and he still has a lot of life ahead of him. We just have to help him move forward differently." They left the clinic in silence. Emma sat in her car seat, playing with a soft toy, unaware of the storm cloud that had gathered again over her best friend. That night, Tom sat in the living room with Rex's head on his lap, running his fingers through the dog's fur. "How do I explain to her that he won't always be able to run with her again?" he whispered to Lauren. "We don't," Lauren replied from the hallway. "She already knows how to love him through anything. She'll just adjust, like he did for her." The next morning, Emma noticed Rex wasn't walking up the stairs like he usually did to greet her. "Rex tired?" she asked, looking up at her parents. Tom knelt down. "Yeah, sweetie. He's a little tired these days." Emma walked to Rex and wrapped her arms around his neck. Then she turned back to her parents and said, "He'll go slow. I'll go slow, too." That moment marked a shift in how Emma treated him. No longer was she bounding ahead, expecting him to follow. Instead, she stayed by his side. If he stopped, she stopped. If he sat, she sat. She adjusted her pace, not because she had, but because love doesn't rush those who are struggling to walk. Inspired by Emma's instinctive patience, the Millers made changes too. They installed a soft ramp over the stairs and created a special cart that allowed Rex to roll gently when his back legs grew too weak. Emma helped decorate it with stickers and carefully placed her old pink blanket inside as a cushion. "This is your new Zoom Zoom, Rex," she declared proudly, patting the side of the cart. "Now we can go everywhere." The sight of Rex rolling gently beside Emma as she walked with her tiny hand on the cart became a symbol all over again. Lauren snapped a photo of it and shared it online with a simple caption. "He carried her when she couldn't speak. Now she walks with him while he can't run." That post exploded across social media. Messages flooded in, again people sharing stories of elderly dogs they were caring for, of siblings with special needs, of aging parents being supported by young children. The picture captured something universal, the idea that love adjusts, no matter the season of life. One particularly emotional comment read, "I was considering putting my senior dog down because she's struggling to walk. Then I saw this. I built her a ramp today. She's still here with us. Thank you, Emma and Rex." Once again, the bond between a toddler and her dog was changing hearts. As Rex's condition continued to evolve, Emma remained his gentle protector. She learned to speak more clearly, asking questions like, "Does it hurt, Rex?" Or, "Do you want to sit now?" She would stroke his fur while humming softly, sometimes the same made-up tune she used the day he collapsed. And in return, Rex never let her out of his sight. Even on days when he couldn't move much, he lifted his head to watch her. When she cried, he'd groan softly, scooting forward to touch her hand. Even in weakness, he was her guardian. The vet visits became routine again, but this time, the Miller family wasn't afraid. They had seen what love could do, and they knew this wasn't the end, just a new chapter. A slower one, a softer one. On her 4th birthday, Emma made a wish before blowing out her candles. She whispered it so quietly that only Lauren, who bent close, could hear it. "I want Rex to walk in the clouds with me one day." "But not now. Now he stays here?" Lauren held back tears. "That's a beautiful wish," Emma nodded. "He's still got work to do. He watches me talk." That night, as Emma lay asleep with her hand draped over Rex, Tom looked at them and said quietly, "We thought she saved him, but maybe he's still saving her too." Lauren smiled and replied, "They're saving each other, every single day." Winter came gently that year. Snowflakes danced on the breeze outside the Miller family's home, as if the season itself didn't want to disturb the peace inside. The once bustling house now moved with calm rhythm, quiet laughter, and slow mornings. At the center of it all, still, were a little girl and her dog, Emma, and Rex. Rex's condition had worsened gradually. Though he was no longer able to walk on his own, he remained mentally sharp. His eyes lit up every time Emma entered the room. He still lifted his ears when she spoke, and sometimes even wagged his tail when she sang. The cart, once a symbol of mobility, now served as a soft resting space where Emma often joined him with her old blanket and a picture book. Though the world had not forgotten them, the Millers had gracefully stepped back from the public eye. They had done their part, raised awareness, helped launch mobile animal clinics, and inspired millions with their story. Now, They wanted only to cherish their time as a family. And time, they knew, was precious. One morning, Lauren woke to the sound of Emma's voice. "Mommy, Rex is tired." She found her daughter curled up next to him, her tiny fingers stroking his face. Rex was still breathing, but just barely. His eyes were open, fixed softly on Emma, full of trust, calm, and love. Tom joined them in the living room, kneeling beside his daughter. They didn't speak. They didn't have to. They just sat there, together, with Rex, watching the final stretch of a life that had given them so much. Later that day, Dr. Singh came to the house. She examined Rex quietly, gently, and then looked to Tom and Lauren with sorrowful eyes. "It's time," she whispered. "But he's not afraid. He's at peace." The room fell still. Emma sat beside Rex, her hand wrapped around his paw. She didn't cry. She simply leaned close and whispered into his ear, "You can walk in the clouds now, Rex. I'll bring your blankie when I come." Dr. Singh administered the medication, and as the last breath left Rex's lungs, the snow outside gently picked up, as if nature itself was wrapping the world in stillness. Tom held Emma close. Lauren covered Rex with the blanket. For a long moment, no one moved. And then, as if carried by memory itself, Emma began to hum the same soft, quiet tune she had sung to Rex that very first day when he lay dying in the grass. Now she sang it again, not to save him, but to send him on. Rex was gone, but what he left behind was anything but empty. In the days that followed, the Miller house felt heavier. Emma didn't ask where Rex had gone. She already knew. But she kept his blanket near, often wrapping it around her shoulders like a cape and saying, "I'm carrying him now." Lauren and Tom decided to honor Rex's life in a way that would continue his legacy. They launched a foundation, Rex's Blanket Project, a nonprofit dedicated to providing comfort items, like handmade blankets and toys, to children in hospitals and dogs in rescue centers. The tagline read, "Because love doesn't need words." Sometimes all it takes is a blanket and a friend. Donations came pouring in. Volunteers knitted blankets. Schools organized drives. Children sent in drawings of dogs with angel wings and letters that read, "I gave my blankie to a dog," in a shelter, like Emma did for Rex. Emma remained the face of the campaign without being on stage, without saying much. Her story had already spoken louder than words ever could. A year passed. On a warm spring day, the family visited the community park where Rex used to chase butterflies with Emma. Now 4 years old, Emma ran through the grass with confidence and a bright voice that echoed with joy. She stopped at a tree near the bench and placed a tiny stone under it, painted with paw prints and stars. It was Rex's memorial spot. She looked up at the sky and whispered, "You can still come play, if you want." Lauren knelt beside her. "What do you think he's doing right now?" Emma thought for a moment. "He's waiting, but not sleeping. He's watching me talk." Tom took a photo from afar. Emma under the tree, her pink blanket wrapped around her shoulders, her eyes toward the clouds. It became the final image on the Rex's Blanket Project website, with the caption, "He saved her voice. She gave him her heart." Together, they reminded the world how to love. As the sun set and the family walked home hand in hand, Emma looked up and smiled. "I remember everything," she said softly. And indeed, she did. She remembered the moment she saw Rex lying helpless in the yard. She remembered the sound of his weak breath. She remembered laying her pink blanket over him. She remembered waiting, hoping, and loving. In that moment long ago, she had saved him. And in every moment after, he had saved her back. The world had cried with them, healed with them, and grown with them. Their story became legend, not because of fame or media or attention, but because it was real. It was raw. And it reminded humanity of something we too often forget, that love, when given freely, without words, without fear, without condition, is the most powerful force on earth. And even when the body is gone, that kind of love never leaves. Rex may have walked into the clouds that winter day, but in Emma's heart, and in the hearts of millions, he never stopped walking beside her. Not for a moment. Not ever.